Good morning. How are you doing this morning? Just doing a check before I go live at 9 o'clock. So let me know if you are up with me this morning. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. For those that are awake with me, good morning to you. Send me a message. Good morning. I'm trying to get my phone is frozen. Good morning to you. How are you doing this morning? I'm going live at 9 o'clock. Send me a message. Let me know how you are this morning. And on today's show, we are going to be helping you how to identify emotional abuse and how to also safeguard yourself. And we're going to be on at 9 o'clock. So I'm just sending you a message this morning. And it's a wet morning, isn't it? It's been raining where I am. Let me know how you're doing this morning. Welcome to the Angela Lee Show. And we're going to be having a good conversation with each other this morning. I don't know what's wrong with my phone. It won't. I think it's my hands is slippery or something. But good morning to you. How are you doing? Today, we're going to be talking about how we can identify emotional abuse, whether it's your family member, whether it's work colleagues, whether it's friends, or whether it's someone personal to you. We're going to be talking about how we can recognize emotional abuse and also how we can safeguard ourselves from abuse. And I know it's been a heated debate, particularly in light with this gentleman called... and what's his name now? Is it Kevin Samuels, who has a petition out against him to have him removed from YouTube because he's actually, apparently, it's been alleged that he's actually abusing women on his YouTube channel. So we're going to be talking about emotional abuse and how we can identify and safeguard ourselves from it. He's causing a stir. This is Kevin Samuels. I've been keeping myself abreast with what's going on, and it's quite damaging. Although I've been listening to what he's been saying, and although I can appreciate what he's trying to do, but it's quite abusive. I will agree, it's actually quite abusive what he's doing. It's really abusive. And so we're talking about emotional abuse. Perhaps you're in a relationship, family relationship, personal relationship, where you've been abused, and or at work, probably you have a bullying boss. And I know that we've covered it on some previous shows, but this morning, I think in light with this Kevin Samuels, we need to actually talk about this, don't we? Because there's lots of people that are actually being abused, still being abused, and are struggling with abusive individuals. I can't, my phone is frozen. I don't know what I'm doing. But hopefully you can see me on my page. Good morning, Gaffer Blue. How you doing? I can't pin it upwards, but you can see it on my page. And so how are you doing this morning, everyone? Let me know how you're doing. We're talking about how to identify emotional abuse and how to safeguard yourself from abuse in light with Kevin Samuels, the controversial YouTuber that's causing a stir. There's a petition out for him to be taken off YouTube, taken down from Instagram, because he's abusive in terms of his advice that he's actually giving women in terms of their relationship. He's not actually a certified coach. He's not qualified. He believes that he's qualified because he's had lots of experience in sales, marketing, all sorts. I mean, I was listening to him the other day and I'm thinking, good Lord, you're not a qualified, certified coach. And how dare you? You've got to be really careful when you're giving advice to people out there. You've got to be so careful because, that people can actually sue you. You've got to have insurance in terms of personal liability, etc. It's a dangerous thing to do, to give out advice to people that you're not qualified, certified, or you're not insured to do. Very dangerous. And so we're talking about how you can identify abuse this morning, how you can safeguard yourself. I mean, you have lots of people out there giving advice. I just want to put it out there that I'm actually a qualified, certified life coach. I'm also a teaching practitioner and a mentor. And so I'm actually insured as well. And so all the advice that I'm giving, that I've been supporting people with on my shows, I'm actually qualified to do so. And so I just want to put that out there definitely before we start the show. And so we've got to be really careful because there's lots of people out there giving people advice, and it's dangerous, isn't it? And particularly if you're not qualified to do so. Very dangerous indeed. And so we're talking about how to identify emotional abuse and how you can actually overcome it this morning. That's what we're talking about this morning. And let me see if my phone is working now, because I'm trying to share this thing and I can't actually share it. Good Lord, I can't. My phone is, it's like the screen's frozen or something. Yeah. Okay. Okay, you can see on my page, and I'm sure you can see the recording. I'm actually streaming live on Facebook Live and also live on my YouTube channel, Angela Lee. So don't forget to subscribe. And I'm also streaming at 9 o'clock live on ellensoulradio.com. And so let's play a lovely tune for you this morning before I start the show at 9 o'clock this morning. Let me know how you are. Don't let anyone break you down this morning, because you are amazing. Don't let anyone tear you down in terms of breaking down your self-esteem and giving you the wrong advice in terms of how to build yourself up as an individual. It's so dangerous, so dangerous. We need to receive the correct advice from people. It's a dangerous world out there. So good morning to you. Oh, here we go. Now it's working. Good morning to you.
Remind me once again just who I am, because I need to know.
How are you doing this morning?
You say I'm loved when I can't feel a thing. You say I'm strong.
Sending out all my love to you.
You say I am held when I am falling short.
Join me this morning.
When I don't belong. Oh, you say I am yours.
Join me this morning. How are you doing this morning? I know it's a bit early. I know it's a bit early.
The only thing that matters now is everything.
It's so important that we put ourselves in high regard and we honor ourselves this morning, because we are amazing people.
I find my worth in you. I find my identity.
Kevin Samuels, shut up. He's talking a load of rubbish, Kevin Samuels, tearing people down. You don't do it like that, Kevin Samuels. You don't do it like that. Quite dangerous, quite dangerous. I mean, he's talking some truth, but it's the way he's actually delivering his truth. It's very dangerous, very dangerous, very dangerous. Very dangerous. We've got to be careful. So good morning to you all that's tuned in live on Facebook Live, YouTube, and also on ellensoulradio.com. How are you doing this morning? How are you doing this morning? You'll have every failure, God. We're going to be streaming live on Ellen Soul Radio at 9 o'clock on the hour. We are amazing people, and we deserve to be loved. We deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. So I'm hoping that you're all good this morning. Let me know how you're doing this morning. I'm just plugging my show as I did. We are created in his image, you know, so we are amazing people. Yeah. We are amazing people, created in his image. Okay. So welcome to the Angela Lee Show this morning. How are you doing this morning? And so before we start, at 9 o'clock, we're going to go live on radio, ellensoulradio.com. So welcome to the Angela Lee Show. And today, I'm sure most of you have actually read about Kevin Samuels. He is a YouTuber, and it's been alleged that he's actually abusing women out there in terms of his life coaching support that he's giving and advice to people out there. And apparently he's not even a qualified coach. He's not certified. I'm sure he hasn't got any liability insurance in terms of the advice he's giving, the brutal advice he's giving to people. And so you should be careful because he can actually be sued. And so I just want to put it out there again before we start the show. I'm actually a qualified certified coach and also a teaching practitioner and a mentor. And so any advice that I'm giving you is not only from experience, but also because I'm actually qualified to do so. I'm actually insured as well. And so I just want to put it out there because it's a dangerous world that we have, because we've got lots of people mimicking that they're actually life coaches, and they're not qualified, they're not certified, they haven't got any insurance, and they're giving people some brutal advice, particularly this controversial YouTuber, Kevin Samuels. He's giving people some brutal advice. People have actually got a petition out for him to be taken down off YouTube, and also to be taken down off not only YouTube, off Instagram. Someone's actually posted and sent me lots of stuff that he's been detrimental advice that he's been given to women in terms of how they can actually bag a man, and particularly a high-earned man. And it's absolutely shocking, the advice he's giving women, because it's quite brutal. But people, some people actually like him. Apparently, he's got a lot of subscribers that are men. And some people have actually mentioned that they don't see that he's doing anything wrong. He's actually telling women the honest truth. Now, telling people the truth is all good, but you've got to do it in a professional way. And that's what we're going to be talking about today on the show this morning. And so keep it locked this morning to the show. And we are talking about how we can actually identify emotional abuse, and how we can safeguard ourselves from abuse this morning. And you're tuning live to the Angela Lee Show, live and direct. Okay, and so before we start, we're going to do our positive affirmations as we always do in the mornings. And so here we go. Let's take our deep breaths and do our positive affirmations this morning. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. I love my body and it does, and all it does for me. I am enough. I am worthy of love. I respect my boundaries. Today I choose me. I love the woman or the man that I am. I am loved and I am deserving of love. That's our positive affirmations this morning. And let's take a deep breath as we start the show this morning. Let's do that again for those that are just joining us for the first time. Let's say those positive affirmations again. Deep breaths in and out. We're going to do it one more time for those that are just joining the show. I love my body and all it does for me, as I can hear the birds tweeting. I am enough. I am worthy of love. I respect all my boundaries. Today I choose me. I love the woman and man that I am. I am loved and deserving of love. Deserving of love. This morning we are deserving of love. We are deserving of love this morning. We are deserving of love this morning. And so let me know how you are. Let me know how you are while I just play with a few little technicalities on my phone. Okay, here we go. Let me know how you're doing this morning as we join me on the show this morning. We are deserving of love this morning. I'm going to turn my volume down. Okay, and so how to identify emotional abuse and how we can actually safeguard ourselves from it. Now, what is actually emotional abuse? It is actually a non-physical behavior or attitude that is designed to control, manipulate, intimidate, subjugate, demean, punish, or isolate a person or persons. I'm going to repeat that again. Emotional abuse is a non-physical behavior or attitude that is designed to control, manipulate, intimidate, subjugate, demean, punish, or isolate a person or a member. Now, if you think that you have experienced anything like that, then perhaps you are being emotionally abused. Humiliation and degradation, discounting and negating, domination and control, judging and criticizing, accusing and blaming. And I'm not sure if you've actually experienced individuals that actually blow up or exaggerate trivial issues, and they have unreasonable demands and expectations. Emotional abuse also exhibits behavior such as emotional distancing and the silent treatment. Emotional distancing and the silent treatment. And so perhaps you're in a relationship with your partner, family member, friends, colleague, and they exhibit these toxic behavior or attitudes. As I've just mentioned, you are being emotionally abused. Isolation. They're going out of their way or going to length in terms of isolating you from friends, from family, from partnerships, from collaborations, from work colleagues, from activities, that happens and occurs at work. These people are intentionally isolating you. It could be deemed as emotional abuse. This morning, we're talking about how you can actually identify emotional abuse this morning. And so we have listed a couple of things that you can actually identify as emotional abuse. Isolation, withholding attention and affection, disapproving, dismissive, contemptuous, condescending looks or condescending comments. Emotional abusive behavior. Sulking, pouting, subtle threats. Abandonment. Abandonment. Physical or emotional abandonment. We're talking about emotional abusive relationships this morning, and particularly in light with this individual that is causing a stir on YouTube, Kevin Samuels. He is putting himself out there as a life coach, and he is apparently advising women in terms of relationships or how to attract high-earned men, not men, women, or perhaps men. And it's been so detrimental and condescending in terms of his advice that he's given to women. And there's a petition out for him to be taken down from YouTube and also Instagram. It's highly dangerous what he's doing because he's not a certified or qualified coach. And I'm sure he hasn't even got insurance for what he's doing. Women could actually sue him for damage control or for damage in terms of their self-esteem. It's dangerous to give advice to people out there if you're not a certified or a qualified coach, and particularly if you're not insured, if you're not licensed to do that. It's actually quite dangerous. And we have a lot of people out there giving people advice and they're not qualified to do so. I just want to again reiterate that I'm actually a qualified coach, certified, a member of a coaching body. I've actually got insurance, and the reason why I'm doing my show today is because I want to support people out there in terms of lots of scenarios, lots of issues, and because I've also experienced it as well. And so very dangerous work that he's doing. And I've identified a couple of traits that these individuals, these abusive characteristics have in terms of emotional abusive behavior. subtle threats of abandonment, physical or emotional. And perhaps you're in a relationship and someone has mentioned to you that I'm actually going to leave you. I'm actually going to move away from you. I'm actually going to take this away from you. You're not actually going to see me again. You're not going to see your grandkids again. You're not going to see your children again. You're not going to see your friends again. Subtle and physical, emotional abandonment. And so emotional abuse is not only made up of negative behavior, but negative attitudes as well. Abusers usually have borderline personality disorder or narcissist personality disorder. It's a mental health condition, and it's due to being abused themselves because, as you know, they mention that hurting people hurt people. So it's usually because these abusers have actually been hurt themselves and they've actually not dealt with their trauma. They haven't actually done the shadow work. They haven't dealt with their trauma. And so they tend to project their pain onto others. So they're projecting their pain onto others. They haven't done the work. They haven't done the inner work. They haven't done the shadow work. So they're projecting their pain onto others. And I just want to point out that it's crucial as an adult, you are responsible for your emotions. You are responsible for your emotions. Not only are you responsible for your emotions, you are also responsible for your behavior and you are responsible for your attitude. And it's your responsibility as an adult to find solutions in terms of dealing with your childhood traumas. It's your responsibility. No one else's. And so playing the blame game ain't going to help. It's your responsibility. If you're over 18, you're an adult, it's your responsibility to find solutions in terms of dealing with your childhood trauma, your past life or ancestral traumas. It's your responsibility. And I think we are quite fortunate in society today because we have so much resources at our fingertips. We have a revolution in terms of online presence and online resources that we can actually tap into in terms of finding solutions and finding support. We have counselors, we have therapists that we can actually engage in. And so there's no excuse why you should remain stuck in your abusive attitude or your abusive behavior. There's no excuse. There are also some similar physical behavior that can be considered as emotional abuse, and it's symbolic as violence. So we have slamming doors, kicking walls, throwing dishes and furniture or other objects the victim values. The primary effect of emotional abuse on the victim is quite detrimental to that person that is actually receiving that abuse. It causes depression, lack of motivation, confusion, difficulty concentrating or making decisions, low self-worth, feelings of failure or worthlessness, feelings of hopelessness, self-blame, and self-destructiveness. So the effect is absolutely detrimental to the person that is actually receiving the abuse. And emotional abuse could actually be protected from a collection of people. It could be perhaps a workplace bully, a manager, a colleague at work. It could be friends, supposedly friends. It could be family members, or it could be your significant other. Emotional abuse is quite similar to brainwashing, particularly as it is systematically or particularly because it systematically wears away the victim's self-confidence. So it wears into the victim's self-confidence, sense of self-worth, trust, and his or her perceptions and self-concept. So it wears into the victim, similar to brainwashing. Emotional abuse is actually considered by many to be the most painful forms of violence and the most detrimental to self-esteem. And so in light of this Kevin Samuels character, the petition that is out there to get him off, shut down from Facebook and shut down from Instagram because of his abusive advice, needs to be really careful here, because you can actually cause your victims or his clients to actually become depressive, lack motivation, have difficulties in concentrating and making decisions, and they might actually feel a sense of failure and worthlessness, self-blame, and also self-destructiveness. That's why we have a high percentage of not only young people, but adults committing suicide, self-harm, and this is as a contributor to actually emotional abuse. And so, very important for us to identify this type of behavior. Emotional abuse is actually considered by many to be the most painful form of violence and the most detrimental to self-esteem. And I have learned as a teaching practitioner, in terms of providing positive feedback to my students, that we always, and in coaching, we always start with a celebration of success. What went well? What did you do well? And we support that with an even better if, to stretch yourself, that perhaps if you had done this, or if you had incorporated that, you could have done better. At no point do we give a negative feedback that will impact on that person's self-esteem, that will wear in to that person's self-worth, giving them a sense of hopelessness and worthlessness. And that's why we've got to be really careful, particularly with people that we are actually subscribing to help us for advice. You need to check them out. You need to do your research. You need to find whether they are credible, because it's going to be detrimental to your self-worth. Emotional abuse, it cuts to the very core of the person. It cuts to the very core of the person. And I've actually have experienced emotional abuse. And I can actually identify how it actually can cut to the core of you, the person. It creates scars that may be long lasting than physical ones. And there's many people that have actually been emotionally abused, but physically. However, emotional abuse is quite long lasting. It creates scars. It wears in to the person's core self. Very dangerous. The insults and the insinuations, the criticisms and the accusations slowly eats away at the victim. And so for Kevin Samuels out there that's giving these brutal advice, his insults, his insinuations, his criticisms and accusations is actually eating into the victims that are actually hoping that he's going to help them with advice, it's quite dangerous what's happening out there. It's quite detrimental to that client's self-worth. And as I mentioned, Kevin Samuels is not actually a qualified or certified coach. It's very dangerous what he's doing out there. Very dangerous. It eats away at the victim's self-esteem until he or she is incapable of judging a situation realistically. Very detrimental, the type of positive feedback that you give to an individual, the type of advice that you're giving to an individual. And so if you are a coach, or if you're a life coach, relationship coach, or if you are masking as one, very detrimental, very dangerous. And I can actually understand why people are actually asking for Kevin Samuels' YouTube channel and Instagram channel to be taken down, because although there is some element of truth in what he's saying, it's too brutal. It's too devastating. It's too dangerous in terms of the effect and the impact that you're going to have to your client, because we have learned as coaches, as certified professional coaches, that when you give advice, as teaching practitioners, when you give advice, you have to start with something positive and end with something as even better. If you incorporate something that's going to actually be positive to help and support people to grow and develop. At no point are you going to give blunt feedback or blunt criticisms to wear into your client, to wear into your person that you are advising. And so the insults and the insinuations and the criticisms and the accusations, they slowly eat away at the victim's self-esteem, until he or she is incapable of judging a situation realistically. And perhaps you've got members of your family that are critical, that have accused you, that just throw insults. Very dangerous. Perhaps you've got a boss that is highly critical, not positive, not giving you a positive feedback. Highly dangerous, because it wears into the individual. And so you make that victim feel that he or she might think that there's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with her. And so this Kevin Samuels that's given his advice to his clients in this brutal, dangerous format, they might actually think there's something wrong with themselves. And they might even believe that they're losing their minds, as victims do. I'm a survivor of emotional abuse. So I know exactly what I'm talking about. I remember when I was being abused by my ex-husbands, I felt as if I was losing my mind. I felt as if I was losing my sanity, because they practiced gaslighting techniques. And I used to feel as if whether I actually experienced these events, highly dangerous. You have a sense as if you're losing your mind, questioning your very sanity, because these abusive tactics are so controlling, are so dangerous. She or he becomes so beaten down that they blame themselves for the abuse. And you know partners where they're physically or emotionally abused, because they're now questioning themselves. They now internally abuse themselves and start judging themselves and blaming themselves for their abuse. Oh, maybe I made him angry. Oh, maybe perhaps if I had done this better. Oh, perhaps if I had listened to him or her. Perhaps if I had listened to my boss, perhaps if I had met the deadline, perhaps if I'd listened to my parents, perhaps if I'd listened to my siblings. They tend to internalize that abuse and they beat themselves down. Emotional abuse poisons relationships and infuses it with hostility, and contempt and hatred. And isn't it a wonder, and I can talk from experience, when people are going through this traumatic abusive experience, why there is so much hostility, there is so much contempt, there is so much hatred within that relationship, a relationship where people once loved each other. Love is overshadowed by fear and anger, guilt and shame. And it is difficult for love to grow in a polluted environment. And so this morning, we are talking about how you can identify and safeguard yourself from emotional abuse. Love cannot grow in that polluted environment. And I remember for myself, I mean, I was married for 20 years and I was thinking that I could change my husband, and I couldn't do that. Our love couldn't grow in that polluted environment. And for my ex-husband, he was a product of abuse himself. And so hurting people hurt people. With my ex-husband, he did not take the responsibility to find the solutions to deal with that trauma, that unfinished business of his childhood. Because as I mentioned earlier on in the show, it's your responsibility to do so. So if you're in an abusive relationship, if you have an abusive partner, if you have an abusive family member, it's their responsibility to deal with their own trauma. It's our responsibility to deal with our own trauma. We cannot blame. We cannot continue to play the blame game. We have to take responsibility of our behavior. So if you are in a domestic situation where you are being emotionally abused, we're going to share some tips on how you can actually safeguard yourself from abuse. And I'm going to invite Dawn, who is the author of Free to Be Me. And we're going to share a couple of tips and techniques on how you can safeguard yourself from abuse. Some strategies. Good morning, Dawn. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thanks, Angela. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you.
Yeah, I was listening.
And so, Dawn, I know that you have actually experienced an abusive pattern in your life. Do you want to share that briefly to us?
I've shared many of them. But
Yes.
do you know what the thing is, Angela? I didn't know about therapy and the right and wrong back then. I actually just thought it was the way it was. And I think
me too. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it was.
Although I knew about therapy, for me, Dawn, I thought that was like a normal marriage where you just have, someone that is perhaps a bit brutal and you just get on with it. So I didn't actually realize that I was actually in a domestic violent marriage in terms of emotional psychological abuse, because I thought that behavior was actually normal of marriages, that's just the way people are. So yeah.
And for me it was my dad. He's got to see these one day and go, for goodness sake, Dawn, it wasn't that bad. But for me it felt that bad. I learned from a really young age to be withdrawn and to keep quiet so that I didn't get caught up in the abuse. And I think that really changed my personality, the point where I didn't really know who I was.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I was like 30, even over that, 35-ish, I started to really find out who I was.
Wow.
It's took me years of therapy, and I'm still having to work through it now. Occasionally
Yeah.
now, someone will raise their voice at me, or they say something aggressive, and that's not at me, but it triggers something in my brain.
Yes.
And that,
because our brains record our traumas. Yeah. Our, our body records traumas. And so it's not a quick fix here. It takes, I mean, as you said, especially if you've been abused for centuries, it's going to take maybe another century for you to get that healing or that transformation that you need. But you've got to begin that journey. So, Dawn, what I was actually mentioning to people, that once you're an adult, you're actually responsible for finding solutions for your abuse, or if you're in an abusive situation, you are the one that the onus is actually on you to find solutions for that.
Yeah, I totally agree, Angela. But do you know what I have learned and been doing, like therapies and helping people with their emotional, based on what I've been through, helping people through those situations. The person who's the abuser, or what we call narcissist, or the bossy one, or the dominant one, don't actually know they're in the wrong.
No.
So why would they take responsibility for something that they believe is right?
Absolutely. Yeah. We're going to share a couple of tips because they think that behavior is quite normal.
Yeah.
They think it's normal.
It could be based on something they've experienced.
Yeah, because hurting people hurt people.
Yeah.
So they think their behavior is actually quite normal. Now, because you have begun to doubt your sanity and your intellect or your perception, it's actually essential that you focus on knowing yourself and trusting yourself. No one knows you as well as you know yourself. And sometimes you're in a situation where an incident has happened, they're gaslighting and they're insinuating that did not happen. And so it's so important, because we're talking about strategies here, so important, if you're the victim, that it's essential that you focus on knowing yourself and trusting yourself.
Yeah.
And because no one knows you as well as you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, if you're not sure, or something we're saying today is resonating with you, identify first of all, how do I feel today? So if you don't know how you've been feeling, you've just been going with the flow of it, listen to how you react to things. And if you don't feel happy within yourself with the situation that's going on, that isn't a cause for alarm, and you need to do something about it.
Yes, and we've mentioned on other shows how important it is to listen to our bodies, to listen to how, or to be aware of how people make us feel.
Yeah.
So crucial, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so no one has the right to read your mind or to determine what your real motives are. And so when people are actually making accusations and insinuations, you've got to also, again, reflect and just remind yourself, we're talking about strategies this morning, that no one has the right to read your mind or to determine what your real motives are.
Yeah, that's right. I know. And the trouble is, I think, Angela, I totally agree with what you're saying. It's kind of stirred up a lot of thoughts this morning from what I've been listening to your show. It's like the person who's the victim doesn't know they're in a victim state.
No, you don't.
When you start taking that responsibility, it stirs up a lot of anger inside. And often that person who's been a victim becomes the perpetrator who wants to lash out.
Yes. Because you're doing that to protect yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's often where, if a child has been abused as a child, as they grow up, they've got this inner fire inside them, which says life isn't fair, and they take it out on other people around them.
Yeah, they project it on other people. But as we mentioned this morning, it's your responsibility to deal with your trauma. And we're doing this show so that you can identify what abusive patterns and attitudes and characteristics are. So for those people that are listening, and perhaps you're the perpetrator, perhaps you're the victim, very important for us to identify these characteristics, because we normalize these characteristics, because I normalized it, Dawn normalized it. We thought that, okay, we're in this marriage and this is actually normal behavior. That this is normal. It's normal to shout and bark and criticize and demean each other. That's not normal. That's actually an unhealthy, toxic environment. And so we're sharing some strategies. And so criticism. And we've been talking a lot on social media, and it's across social media, in terms of this gentleman called Kevin Samuels. He's actually a YouTuber, and he's been advising women in terms of relationships and how they can attract high-earn men. And his criticism is quite brutal.
Yeah.
And I was mentioning, Dawn, that as life coaches, that's against the code of conduct or ethics in terms of life coaching.
Absolutely.
In terms of, that's against the ethics, Dawn.
Yeah, because as a coach or therapist or mentor, whatever role you're playing for that person, what your words, what you give out when that person's in a vulnerable space can have a massive impact on every choice they make from that day.
Absolutely.
That's such a responsibility that it's so important to know that you come from a place of integrity.
Absolutely.
I would say this guy is coming from a place of anger and fear.
Absolutely. Yeah, something's happened to him. And I think someone's actually mentioned that, that his ex-wife is actually going to be talking about what he's really like. Apparently, it's been alleged that he's a deadbeat father. He owes child support. And so you have people masking as life coaches, and it's so dangerous. And vulnerable clients and, women out there or men, they are actually so gullible to these people. It's very important, as I was mentioning to our listeners, that you check people out. Both Dawn and myself, we are qualified, certified life coaches. We have insurance to protect us in terms of the advice that we give people. And so you need to check people out. And some people are only in the business just to make a quick buck or to get a fan base. And as you mentioned, it's so dangerous. So most people don't realize that they are critical as they are. They may be repeating a pattern of this critical behavior, because as Dawn mentioned, there's something that's probably he's modeled in his life in terms of his parents, and he's perhaps repeating the pattern that was given to him, or abusers do that in terms of when they were a child, Dawn.
Yeah, absolutely. And, he's probably, in his mind, he's thinking he's doing right.
Yeah.
Can I just refer to one of the remedies, the backflow remedies? There's a remedy called Vine, which comes about, the state of mind comes about when they actually tell people what to do, and they're bossy, they're dominant, they can be quite aggressive with it, because there's feeling weak-willed underneath.
Yeah.
And I would say to anyone, if you have this inkling that someone is dominant over you, or they're trying to push you around, just take your mindset to a place as like, I can see through you. I can tell you're only doing this to bring me to a lower place than what you are.
Wow. Yeah. It's like it's a masking tool that they use, isn't it, to sort of disguise their insecurities that they have in themselves. So that's why they become bullies. Bullies are cowards, they say, don't they? Bullies are actually quite cowards. And so when confronted by your abuser, that they are only being honest, which is what this guy Kevin Samuels is saying, I'm only being honest, or I'm trying to help. These clients or these people that are actually going to him for advice, or even, if you're being abused by your boss, or your family member, they're actually saying, oh, I'm only being honest. You did not complete this task correctly or sufficiently. You didn't meet this target, and I'm only being honest. I mean, I remembered working at a school a couple of years ago. I had a brutal line manager, brutal deputy head of a school. She was absolutely brutal in terms of her feedback. And I remember distinctively her actually saying to us as teachers that she was actually only being honest. So dangerous. And so we need to tell these people. I mean, as I mentioned on a previous show, I actually addressed it there and then at the meeting, because I wasn't going to actually take that type of abuse. But we need to tell these type of people that are abusive or brutally critical that they don't need to take responsibility for your life. Because people can give advice, but they can't take responsibility for your life. They can't take responsibility for your life. And that you are an adult who is fully capable of taking care of yourself. But obviously, these victims that go to Kevin Samuels, they're going for help because they're of the belief that they can't take care of themselves. Dawn.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do tend to attract in what we feel about ourselves.
Oh yes, we do.
They've probably got some underlying anger and issues going on, and they're going, so that's why I agree with him. So it fuels the fire, and it compounds everything you're already feeling.
Yes. There's a reason why these women are actually, or men are attracted to this Kevin Samuels, because they're emulating what's already in them, what's already actually within them. Yeah. Absolutely. And so we're going to share some tips. It's the Angela Lee Show. We're talking about how you can identify and safeguard yourself from emotional abuse. And we're talking in light with this controversial individual, Kevin Samuels, who's lots of people have signed a petition to take him down off YouTube, off Instagram, because he's giving some brutal advice in terms of his clients. And we're also talking about, perhaps you're out there and you are in a relationship, or perhaps you are in a place of work or a family setting where you are being emotionally abused. Strategies. Dawn.
Well, I would say, first of all, I've said it once, but listen to what your body's saying. And I've said that to people so many times, and they say, what are you talking about? If you feel like a gut reaction where you want to lash back, that's because you're mirroring what that person's saying, and it's triggering something in you that's upsetting you. And it's not in line with who you should be. They're trying to make you feel something different to what you should be.
Absolutely.
And for me, it took a while. I couldn't actually identify what I was feeling. So I started taking it out of my head and writing down what my reactions were to this and how I saw my life. And when I looked at it, I was like shocked. I was thinking like, oh my God, if my sister or my daughter was going through this, I'd been out of here by now.
Yeah.
Because, if we identify it in front of us, we can actually go, I think I need to adjust this.
Yeah.
I think there's something here, which I always say to people, put yourself in the position as if you were your best friend. What would you say to your best friend?
Yes.
You need to be looking at what feels right and what feels wrong. And that takes a little time. And I do a little exercise, which I call figure 8. So I put figure 8 in front of them, put the person that's the perpetrator at the top, or the abuser, and you at the bottom. And Archangel Michael, please come, surround us in healing and sever through that cord. And let that person drift away in your mind. So you see them. So you do it as a visualization. And from that day, take 2 weeks to observe that person as if they just walked into your life. And would you allow that to happen? Probably not.
Yeah. Probably not. No, probably not.
When you're so in it, though, Angela, you can't see the wood for the trees.
No, you can't see the wood from the trees when you're in it. Yeah, I totally agree. Because as I mentioned before, I was in it and I just thought it was normal behavior. Yeah, I thought it was actually normal. I thought it was normal. We're going to go through these items of, I know we talked about a couple of strategies of what you can actually identify as emotional and abusive behavior. Humiliation, discounting and negating, domination and control, judging and criticizing, accusing and blaming. And sometimes something trivial can happen and they have actually blown it out of proportion. Unreasonable demands and expectations. Do you want to elaborate on that, Dawn?
Yeah. See,
because sometimes people have unrealistic expectations of what you can actually do for them, either as a mother, as a colleague, as someone that's actually collaborating with people. They have unrealistic expectations and they put so much demands on you. It actually reminds me of teaching. Unrealistic expectations. The demand is enormous.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, sometimes we need that person who will kind of offload and give us loads of information. But I think a lot of the time when it gets to relationships or like a work situation, that person who's allowing it to happen feel disempowered.
Yeah.
So it just keeps loading in. And at what stage, I always say to people, if you feel unhappy with yourself, that's because you need to change something that's going on around you. And if
Yes.
someone's putting unnecessary demands on you and expecting you to fill that void, it's because that person doesn't feel empowered. They're not actually taking responsibility for themselves.
Yeah. They're mirroring something, aren't they? And so emotional distancing, the silent treatment. I remember when I was married to husband number one, I was giving, the silent treatment would last for days. We'll be in the house, and he will just walk past me and not talk to anyone, not talk to his children, our children, just give us a silent treatment. It would go on for days. And then he had the audacity to think that actually he can actually start talking to me again. And this pattern will continue into the relationship. Withholding attention and affection, isolating people, isolation.
I am smiling, Angela, because I remember a time when I was a teenager. The first official boyfriend, I came home really late at night. It was like a nightclub thing. We all were late. And my dad would not talk to me for 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah. And my mum said to me, he just give me the look. And I'm like, what have I done? And my mum, I said to Mum, what's wrong with him? She said, well, you should have done what you were told.
That's the silent treatment.
Yeah.
That's
and
the silent treatment.
On. And in the end, I said to my dad, and this was a long while down the road, I said to him, are you got to stop this ever? He said, when you apologise to me for letting me down.
Oh my God.
And so he was putting the blame onto me. He didn't stop. I could have been in a dangerous situation for he knew. But he saw me as in the wrong because he thought that he was trying to guide me on the right track. And my God, that was a nightmare. And he'd do the same to my brother. I got into a relationship where my husband would do the same.
There we go.
It's like, you've got time to think about this now. You've done wrong. And that's an awful place to be.
That's a very awful place to be because as we mentioned, that these negative patterns, they actually wear into the victim.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They wear into the victim. It's really dangerous. Slamming the doors.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Kicking walls.
Yeah.
Throwing dishes and furniture and objects. I remember I had a friend years ago, and when I think actually they got back together actually, which is quite scary. When her husband used to get angry, he used to go down in the kitchen and he will smash all the dishes on the kitchen floor. He'll bang all the cupboards. And the kids, they were young at the time, they were petrified about his behavior. And then he'll actually wait for his wife to actually clear up after him. Wow. And I was actually horrified when she actually went back to him, because she actually left him because she nearly lost her life. Because I think one of his manic episodes went terribly wrong. And one of the glasses that he smashed actually cut into her wrist, and she nearly lost her life. And I was quite horrified that she actually went back to that type of environment. And so they go back. Why, Dawn? They go back. Why?
Because they don't know any different. They've got nowhere else to go. Maybe it's their self-esteem is that low that they feel they need that person.
Yes.
And the other thing that just came to my mind is maybe they feel on some level they can change that person, and it will get better.
That it will get better. I mean, I thought after 20 years of marriage, my first husband, that it was going to get better, and that I can change him, and that I could actually help his, support him with his trauma. But I couldn't, because the only person that I'm actually responsible for changing is actually myself.
Yeah.
You can't change people, and it will not change unless they get the help that they need.
Yeah.
And so I learned that the hard way. 20 years down the line, I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
And so we are talking about solutions. We just want to remind you of some of the toxic behavioral attitudes of people that exhibit this. As we mentioned before, that emotional abuse is actually similar to brainwashing, as it systematically wears into the victim's self-confidence, sense of self-worth, trust in himself or her, perception or self-concept.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. See, I would say if someone's in that relationship and it's been going on for a long time, they've probably lost who they are. So
Yeah.
all of the other stuff isn't even relevant.
No,
They can't see that there's a way out.
no.
What they're actually living is a nightmare. So part of the brain shuts down anyway.
Yeah,
You're in survival technique, and
yeah,
you just go with the flow and do the best you can to get through it. And
yeah.
often the way you react is based on your fear. That's making me feel a bit strange today. So, it's like you'll find, maybe you get that tickle in your throat where you want to say something, you feel words coming up, but then they suppress again. And that's often
Yeah.
it, where that person gets more and more suppressed, and that other person sees themselves as stronger because they've won.
Yes. And then you have this sense of walking on eggshells because
Oh,
whilst you're suppressing yourself,
yeah.
you're walking on eggshells. You don't want to disturb the peace, or you're living in fear, not knowing what's going to happen next.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yes. And
yeah.
that person, as you said, believes that they've won. And so very important. So we talked about strategies. And so for the person that's actually been abusive, let's talk about some strategies that we can actually help the person that's actually been abusive. And so first of all, they have to admit that to themselves they are emotional abusive, and the damage that they've done. So if someone's like smashing plates, smashing everything, so how can they get to that place of realization and self-awareness that what they're doing is damaging? Because as you mentioned, Dawn, some of these individuals think it's actually quite normal.
Yeah. I don't know, Angela. It's hard to even reason with that person to help them to see that they're in the wrong, because it's become a pattern that's accumulated over years and maybe through
Over years.
a lifetime. And actually, the ironic thing is, the divine state of mind I was talking about earlier, it comes in the category, it's for the good of the other person. It's for the good of others. So their abusive behavior, like my dad would, was quite heavy with his hands. It's like, well, that'll teach you. You won't do that again, will you? But that child then becomes fearful. And I would say, I don't know, there are some people who can change that way. But I would say for the most of the time, work with the person who feels like they're the victim. And pray,
Yeah.
if you keep getting stronger and you don't allow that person to intimidate you, basically they've got nothing to work against. And you get stronger and stronger in yourself, and then you choose whether you walk away or not.
Yeah. I know, Dawn, that you've got to go in a minute. I just want you to share your book with our listeners before you go.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well,
She's the author of Free to Be Me.
Yeah, Free to Be Me. And I've got my other book out today as well. Can I show you that?
Have you?
Just because I've been busy this week. So
Okay, good.
It's more a spiritual one, this is. And I'm no
Divine intervention.
But
Yeah.
Free to Be Me has got loads of tips in here for people who basically are ready to take that chance and change their life if they feel that the situation is not right for them. If you get this stirring inside you, which says, this ain't right for me, please listen to that. Reach out for help. Don't try and get through it by yourself, because you need someone to sound things off with. Otherwise, the one who's the perpetrator will keep undermining you and make you feel like you're doing wrong.
Yeah. Great, thank you. And then, we need to do a show where we can actually talk about that other book that you have. Yeah. Yes, definitely. So congratulations, and I'll see you soon, Dawn. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks, Angela. You have a great day. Well done for sharing.
Thank you.
Oops, I've got to go here, haven't I? I've lost my mouse. Can you shut me out?
Okay, so I don't know. You have to do it. I can't do it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, I'm going to pray. Thank you. I'm going to play another number. Take a bit of a break. Thank you, Dawn.
I just want to feel elevated, yeah. Wake up in the morning, talk about the morning. Wanna feel that levitation, yeah. Be on cloud nine, feel like I'm flying.
Oh.
In the situation, yeah.
Are we breaking up?
Out of me is dying, happiness and imitation, yeah. Heard you speak about joy and I want an invitation, yeah. Something inside, yeah, the enemy. Long since the lips set free, I've been torn down, I got all this pain.
Apparently we're breaking up. Let me know how we are sounding now. If you can hear us, let me know. Oh my God, I'm breaking up apparently. I've turned my volume up a bit. Hope you can hear me better now. Oh dear. Good morning, Denise Wise. How are you doing? How are you doing, Denise?
You ain't even know. Follow your heart, you might make the wrong choice. People yelling, but you always got that still small voice. Got peace, never drive me insane. Always staying the same. Something inside, yeah, the enemy. Long as it lives set free. I've been torn down, I got all this pain. Feel like I'm nothing changed. Hurt so badly. I just wanna be so happy. Lord, I need you, please come grab me. Cause I just wanna be Hey,
we're sharing tools on how you can safeguard yourself this morning from emotional abuse. That's what we're talking about this morning. How you can safeguard yourself from emotional abuse this morning. It's Angela Lee on the Angela Lee Show. Thank you for joining me this morning. We're talking about how you can safeguard yourself from emotional abuse. And so I just want to go through the list of tips for the perpetrator of abuse, things that they can do. So first of all, I know that Dawn mentioned that it's really quite true, quite apparent that if the person is an abusive person, it's actually difficult for the person to admit that what they're doing is actually wrong, because obviously they believe it's their behavior is okay, that it's an okay behavior, and it's because they've normalized that behavior because it's been a repeated behavior and they have been doing this behavior for ages, for years, and it's something that they've modeled from their parents, and so it's a normal behavior of theirs, a normal behavior pattern. And so if that individual can acknowledge or wants to repair that relationship, then they need to admit that what they're doing is wrong and that what they're doing is actually damaging to the person. They need to also reach an understanding in terms of why they're abusing. As we mentioned, hurting people tend to hurt people. And so perhaps it's something that they're modeling from their parents, or some trauma they've experienced in their childhood. And so they need to find out, the perpetrator need to find out and identify why is it that they're actually exhibiting that behavior. They also need to understand their patterns. You need to understand your patterns. And you need to work on the unfinished business of your past, because if you don't work on the unfinished business of your past, you're going to continue to exhibit these patterns. Nothing's going to change. And the unfinished business we're talking about is your childhood trauma, past life trauma, ancestral trauma. And you need to do this by talking to a therapy, get some counseling, get a life coach perhaps, but life coaches can only help you in terms of how you can move forward. But in terms of this inner and shadow work, you need to get some counseling and some real therapy in terms of how you can actually unpack that learned behavior and to identify where it's coming from and to address how you can actually heal from that and make progress from that. You've actually also got to admit to your partner that you've actually been emotionally abusive. You've got to admit to your colleagues. If you're a boss, admit to your employees that, okay, that was a bit too brutal. I shouldn't have said that. Admit to your family member that, that was a bit too harsh. I shouldn't have said that. Admit to them that you were emotional abusive. If you want to start taking responsibility of your behavior, these are the steps that I'm sharing with you that needs to take place. Kevin Samuels has to admit that actually, I'm not a coach. I'm not a certified coach. I'm not a professional coach. He needs to apologize to these people that he's giving toxic advice to, brutal advice to, because it's wearing into their self-esteem. So you need to admit. And once you've admitted that, you need to apologize to the people that you've actually been abusive to. That's taking responsibility of your behavior. You need to apologize. You need to make an apology. You need to learn to develop empathy to others in terms of, the impact of that toxic behavior, that abusive attitude. You need to apologize. You need to take ownership, and you need to apologize. You need to learn tools and strategies and ways to identify constructively in terms of how you're going to release your anger, how you're going to release your pain, how you're going to release your stress. Some of us, we struggle with triggers and schemas, and it's a journey. I mean, some things, that I've experienced in my past can trigger me. But however, we've got to learn how to manage it effectively. We cannot lash out in anger. We cannot project our pain onto others. We've got to learn the skills and the tools and the techniques and how we can manage our anger, how we can manage our frustration, how we can manage our stress effectively. And some of these techniques that I can share that I do, mindfulness helps. Being self-conscious, being a person that is reflective of self, being consciously aware of your behavior, of your actions, self-reflection. Get a journal and start writing down how you're feeling and your actions, and how you could have improved your actions, how you could have done this differently and better. Good morning, Judith. How are you doing? You need to take responsibility of your behavior. You cannot play the blame game. You can't continue to blame your pain on the past or people that have inflicted this pain on you. If you're an adult, you're over 18, you've got to take responsibility of your pain. You've got to take ownership of your pain. And you do this by employing, as I mentioned, a counselor, a therapist, a coach, in terms of learning different tools and strategies and practices on how you can manage your pain, your anger, your stress, your frustration. You need to be able to identify these triggers and these false beliefs, the negative stories that you have been telling yourself. And you need to start actually telling a different story. These are some strategies that you can actually develop in terms of taking ownership of your toxic behavior. And this morning we've been talking about emotional abuse, and particularly in light of this gentleman, that there's a petition out there in terms of Kevin Samuels, who is masking himself as a coach, a relationship coach, and he's doing so much damage to women that he's been advising. People have actually complained that his advice is actually brutal. There is a petition out there to have him taken off YouTube and Instagram. Or perhaps you have a family member, a work colleague that is actually abusive, criticizing, demeaning, discounting, judging, humiliating you, accusing you. We have learned, as I mentioned, as professional coaches, that when you give advice to people, it's got to be positive. Initially, it's got to be positive. And in terms of giving advice to clients and people, you've got to find solutions for them in a positive way where they can find solutions, not demeaning them. Because as we mentioned, that in emotional abuse, it's made up of not only negative behaviors, but of attitudes. And usually people that project this type of attitude are actually abusers who are actually struggling with borderline personality disorder or narcissistic type of disorders. They're probably been abused and traumatized themselves. And so we need to show a level of empathy. But however, we need to also equally know how we can actually safeguard ourselves from systematic abuse. And so if you're out there and you're judging your sanity, no one knows you more than yourself. And I remembered experiencing a situation where I was actually being accused and insulted. But because I know myself, because I know who I am, I don't allow the accusers or the abusers to have that authority or have that dominion or that control to attempt to impact on my perception of things, because nobody knows you more than you know yourself. And so this morning, I just want to encourage you to center yourself, because you know yourself. No one has the right to read your mind or to determine your emotions, your motives. No one has that right. No one has the right to criticize you in a demeaning way. No one has that right, because you are an adult and you're responsible for yourself. And so this morning, if you're listening to the show this morning, I want to support you this morning with these strategies and these tips. You need to tell these people that are abusing you that they don't need to take responsibility for your life, because you're responsible for your life. We can't change people. The only person that we're actually responsible for changing is actually ourselves. We can't change people. I thought I could change my ex-husband, but I couldn't change him. We're responsible for changing ourselves. As an adult, we're responsible for changing ourselves. We have to have autonomy of ourselves. We are responsible for taking care of ourselves. And some of the other strategies that we can share with you is also, you need to create healthy boundaries to protect yourself from these abusers. And so if you're looking for a life coach, particularly people like Kevin Samuels, etc., or a life coach or a counselor and a therapist, research on people, ensure that they are actually certified, they're actually qualified. Research about them, because I know that people are actually carrying out researches in terms of this Kevin Samuels character, and they've actually found that he's been alleged that he's a deadbeat father, that he's an abuser himself. And so we need to do our necessary research, because we are actually leaving ourselves wide open to these abusers to actually abuse us. And as I mentioned, it's quite dangerous in terms of the impact of what this abusive, emotional abusive attitude and patterns have on individuals' lives, because it wears in to your self-worth and your self-esteem. Judith is actually saying, good morning, Judith, that, yeah, it's important to set boundaries. And Judith is saying that's why she's actually let some of her friends go. Absolutely. And sometimes you might have friends that are demeaning, that don't add value to your life. You need to actually do an inventory. And I mentioned this on so many shows. I mean, what value does this friendship bring to you? What value does your family relationship bring to you? And sometimes, we haven't chosen our families. We're born into the families that, but we didn't have any choice. But you have got the choice with who you allow access to. You've got to set healthy boundaries. Some of us, we've got some toxic family members, so demeaning, so critical, so condescending, so brutal in terms of their criticism. They humiliate us, they judge us, they try to dominate and they try to control us. They play all these silly mind games in terms of emotional distancing and giving us the silent treatment. It's unhealthy. And so you need to safeguard yourself. As an adult, you need to safeguard yourself. If you have friends or colleagues that are withholding their attention and their affection from you, that's emotional abuse. And you don't have to stand for that. You can take the necessary precautions to safeguard yourself. And I remembered I was told years ago that, oh my God, Angela's really changed. Yeah, you better believe in it. You better believe it. God damn, I have changed. Because I refuse to tolerate abuse. And so if they believe I've changed, yeah, I've changed for my own good, to safeguard myself. And so I'm changing to take the necessary boundaries to safeguard yourself without apology. I'm not apologizing for the boundaries that I have in place, because my boundaries are there to protect me. My boundaries are there to safeguard me. And so you should not apologize for the boundaries that you have put in place in order to safeguard yourself. And isn't it amazing that the people that you're actually putting these boundaries to, they are the ones that actually are angry. They're the ones that are actually upset. And so that suggests that actually those boundaries need to be put in place. Subtle threats of abandonment, either physical or emotional. And as Dawn said so rightly, the author of Free to Be Me, that pay attention to how your body feels. It's been said that your energy speaks more louder than your voice. You know, somebody can actually walk into the room and you can actually feel their energy, you can feel their toxicity. So listen to that. Pay attention to how people make you feel, because your energy is actually right. There's something that's quite not right. And so you need to pay attention to your body. You need to pay attention to how people make you feel. And you need to safeguard yourself. You need to say no without apology. And feel happy to say, actually, no, I can't attend this event. And no, I can't go here. No, I can't do that for you. Feel happy to do that. I mean, I do. Do whatever you need to do to safeguard yourself this morning. And whilst we're talking about safeguarding ourselves, I just want to end with the importance of us as individuals learning how to celebrate ourselves. Often we do not know how to celebrate ourselves. We often wait for people to celebrate us. I just want to encourage you that this morning before I go, that learn how to celebrate yourself. Give yourself a flower that you deserve. Be proud of your accomplishments, what you have achieved. Validate yourself instead of looking for outside validation. Whether from your friends or family, validate yourself, or from strangers, from social media. Validate yourself. You're worth it. Look in the mirror and say to yourself, I am so proud of you. I'm so proud of what you've achieved. Look in the mirror and say that to yourself. Because in this world, we are conditioned to downplay our achievements. We are told that we need to remain humble regardless of the situation. But I'm telling you right now in the show this morning that do not let other people dictate how you celebrate yourself. Do not let people tell you that you're doing too much when it comes to acknowledging your accomplishments. When we celebrate ourselves, sometimes we make people uncomfortable. Most likely, they haven't celebrated their own accomplishments. They may think, how can you have the audacity to celebrate your accomplishments? Remember, that is just them projecting their insecurities on you, because you've got a right to celebrate yourself. Be bold and be loud about your victories. Do not downplay your accomplishment for anyone. This might be foreign to you because, you know, it's not something that we've been taught to do, because we've been taught systematically to be humble. However, you deserve to celebrate yourself. Their validations or their lack thereof does not negate all the things that you have been through. So celebrate yourself this morning. And for all those that have actually survived abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse, celebrate yourself and validate yourself, love yourself, celebrate yourself. You deserve to be celebrated. I mean, I celebrate myself this morning because I've managed to survive and overcome emotional, psychological abuse. Don't wait for others to do that. And so celebrate yourself this morning. If you're listening on the airways on ellensoulradio.com, celebrate yourself this morning. Celebrate yourself. If you're listening to my YouTube channel, celebrate yourself this morning. If you're listening on Facebook Live, celebrate yourself this morning. Give yourself a round of applause. Don't get me wrong. It feels good to celebrate. It feels good to be celebrated by your friends and your family. However, the most important person that needs to celebrate you is actually you. You need to celebrate you. Good morning, Carol. How are you doing this morning? You need to celebrate you. Don't look for validation or wait for people outside to celebrate you. You need to celebrate you. Give yourself a standing applause this morning. You deserve to celebrate your small victories because you and only you have accomplished them. You need to celebrate your victories. You should celebrate large victories that you almost quit before you did it. Do you know, I was retracting on my accomplishments and I celebrated myself. I gifted myself with something. And so we need to give ourselves a rewards. Reward yourself. I have a reward journal that I actually reward myself for things that I've accomplished. I either buy myself something, treat myself to something. I reward myself. I'm not looking for anyone to reward me. I reward myself. Buy myself a perfume. Buy myself an outfit. I reward myself. Good morning, Denise. Celebrate yourself. You've come so far with the obstacles that you've had to face. Celebrate yourself. My God, you've come so far. I was reflecting, and Denise is an amazing person. Denise Wise, if you don't know her music, get her music. I played it last week. Her accomplishment is amazing. She's been through so much. We've all been through so much. Blessings to you, Denise. Celebrate yourself. You make it look easy, but it's really hard. It's been a challenge to unlearn those patterns, those habits, those ancestral archetypes that we've inherited. It's been hard. It's been a challenge. Let's not make it look so easy. It's not easy. It's been hard. It's been difficult. So celebrate yourself. I celebrate myself this morning for all the obstacles that I've gone through, for all the things that I've achieved. It's been difficult. I celebrate Denise. I celebrate you listeners listening out there. Carol, Judith, celebrate yourself this morning. Don't let it look easy. It's not easy to go through or overcome emotional, psychological, physical, emotional abuse. It's not easy. It's not easy to unlearn those toxic patterns when you've been accused and demeaned and insulted all your life, when you've been devalued and not taken for the jewel and the diamond you are. It's not easy. Denise, could you send it to me by messenger so I can play it on my system? Thank you. Thank you. Denise is sharing an amazing song. She's an amazing woman. Denise Wise, check her out. Powerful woman. overcome so much, but then she's sharing her gift, her healing gift, to others, which is why I take time on a Sunday morning to share my gift, so that I can help someone out there that's actually going through their journey, starting their journey, trying to overcome, trying to unpack those limiting beliefs, those toxic behavior, those things that you've learned, those things that have been handed down to you. It's not easy. So I'm encouraging you this morning to celebrate yourself. Celebrate yourself unapologetically. Make no apologies as you celebrate yourself. Unapologetically celebrate yourself, no matter what. No matter what other people might say. Celebrate yourself. You deserve the accolades. You deserve it. Don't wait for others to celebrate you. Your accomplishment still means something without their praises. And so irrespective of whether people are celebrating you, your accomplishments mean so much. You deserve to be the biggest and the loudest cheerleader. Be your loudest cheerleader. You deserve all the flowers. I mean, I love flowers. Buy yourself a bunch of flowers. Don't wait for someone to buy it for you. Buy it yourself. Buy it for you yourself. Look in the mirror and say, I am proud of you. Be the cheerleader to yourself that you know you deserve. This morning, just want to encourage you this morning to be your own cheerleader. I'm going to see whether I can actually find that song that Denise has sent to me. I'm going to hopefully see if I can actually find it here. Be your greatest cheerleader. Celebrate yourself this morning. Validate yourself this morning. Look in the mirror this morning and say how amazing you are. Celebrate yourself this morning. I'm going to see if I can play Denise's song for you this morning. Before I go, Sun God.
Someone out there, don't know where, he knows who he is. Came into my life like a golden light, then he slipped away. Baby, don't you want me? Don't you need me like I need you? Baby, don't you want me? Don't you need me like I need you? I need your touch like I need the sun. Need your gentle smile.
Okay.
Sometimes wish I'd never be.
Sun God is the old Denise Wise.
Baby, don't you want me?
Powerful.
Don't you need me like I need you? Baby, don't you want me? Don't you need me like I need you? It was beautiful, it was warm. It kept me hanging on. It was beautiful, it was warm.
Powerful words this morning.
Baby, one day you'll be back.
Sammy.
So I can see.
Can you you send me Spare Me as well again?
Baby, don't you want me? Don't you need me like I need you? Baby, don't you want me? Don't you need me like I need you? Baby, don't you want me? Don't you need me like I need you? Baby, don't you want me? Don't you need me?
Oh, they're both on there. Cool. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? That's Denise Wise's song. Oh my God, I hope I'm going to do this right. It's a juggling act here. Yeah, and Denise is mentioning that she wrote that song 14 years ago, and the sun god is actually her. It represents her when she was naive and she wasn't sure of, where she was in the world. She's got another song that's called Spare Me, and it empowers women, leaving the witnesses and my mother behind and finding myself, because she was actually a Jehovah's Witness and she was brainwashed to believe a certain pattern of life, and she had to set herself free. Yeah, she had to set herself free and leave that. And sometimes you have to leave your loved ones. Do you know? I can actually resonate with that. Sometimes we have to leave our loved ones. Sometimes you have to leave your friends, so-called friends. Sometimes you have to leave partnerships and people that you've collaborated with. Sometimes you have to leave cliques or forums on social media that are toxic, that's not bringing any value to you. And sometimes, to leave your mother and to leave your family, it's tough. That's why I mentioned it's not easy. And we should not make it look easy. We need to celebrate ourselves. Sometimes we have to disassociate ourselves from even members of our own family. And it's hard. It's not easy. And I can talk from experience. It's not easy. But whatever you need to do to safeguard your mental health, your well-being, you need to do it. As Denise is saying, she had to do it to find herself. I can actually resonate. And Denise is saying that in contrast, she has learned why she had attracted these lessons. Absolutely. I've learned that as well, Denise. And so when you do the inner work and you do the shadow work, when you find yourself, you will begin to find, why do you attract these toxic people into your life? I found that. I had to find out and learn the hard way. Why do I ask myself in the past, why did I attract these toxic friendships or toxic relationships in my life? And when I did the inner and the shadow work, I understood why. So you need to do the inner work. You need to do the shadow work. You need to deal with the unfinished business of your childhood. Because if you don't do it, and I keep repeating it, if you don't do the work, then you're going to find yourself on a karmic cycle, repeating the lessons that the universe wants you to learn. So even as we talk about this Kevin Samuels that has a petition to be taken down from YouTube and Instagram, social media, because of the toxic advice that he's giving women, there's a reason why you're attracted to him. Why did you go to him in the first place? Why are these men attracted to him? There's something in you that's attracted to these type of people. So you need to do some reflective work and ask yourself, why did I actually go to him in the first place? Carol Fraser is saying that I've always felt disappreciated and I was abused, but today I will change the unappreciated mindset. I am needed. Okay, I'm going to read that from Carol. I am needed in the world of well-being, and I've changed lives for others. That's all that matters. I celebrate my ability to care for others, my patience and non-judgment of others, misfortunes, and most of all, I care for me. I am amazing, being placed here for a purpose. Absolutely. Carol Fraser, I celebrate you this morning. That is powerful. I celebrate you this morning. We are needed. Why do I wake up in the morning on Sunday mornings to do my show? I am needed. I celebrate myself this morning because I've overcome, and I want to give you the list why I want to celebrate myself this morning. I've overcome the brain tumor. I've overcome chronic insomnia. I've overcome emotional, psychological, financial abuse from family members, from friends, from associates. I've overcome. So I celebrate myself this morning. I've overcome panic attacks. I've overcome this living in the spirit of fear. I've overcome this morning. I've overcome. And so I celebrate myself this morning. I celebrate my accomplishments. I've become a life coach. I celebrate myself this morning because domestic abuse can actually impact anyone. I'm actually a teacher. I'm actually a teacher, professional teacher as well. Yes, it actually can impact on professional people. And as Carol said, we should not look down on people and think that, oh, they're beneath us, because domestic abuse, emotional abuse can affect anyone. Anyone in society. And so have empathy, but celebrate yourself this morning. Celebrate yourself this morning. Celebrate yourself this morning without apology. Celebrate yourself this morning. I'm trying to see whether I can actually open this link, that I can play this another number from Denise Wise. Peaceful. Let's have a listen. And subscribe to her channel, her YouTube channel, Denise Wise. An amazing, powerful individual. And for those that are listening, find healing, find peace. Take responsibility of your life. Take autonomy. And celebrate yourself this morning. You deserve it. You're worthy. Fight for you. You're worth it. Powerful. Swimming free this morning, out of your influence. Powerful lyrics. It's a personal rebellion anthem about freeing oneself from mind control and listening to your own inner guidance as a free spirit. Free yourself this morning from mind control, brainwashing, emotional, abusive tactics and techniques that people use. Free yourself and find peace this morning, this Sunday. Free yourself this morning. Free yourself this morning. Free yourself from the ashes. Do whatever you need to do to safeguard yourself. Do whatever you need to do. Set those appropriate boundaries this morning. Free yourself. No apology this morning. Free yourself this morning. I am free. I celebrate myself this morning. I celebrate myself this morning. I'm free. Free from your control. I am free this morning. That is absolutely amazing, isn't it? It's an amazing song this morning. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I just want to thank you. I just want to thank you for joining me this morning on the Angela Lee Show. You know, we do it different. I want to say many blessings to Carol Fraser, Denise Wise, to Judith, to, I'm just going through the names, to, I know that Gaffer joined me earlier on, to Dawn, who joined me in the show, Andrea, good morning to Andrea, to all those that have joined me on the show this morning. And for those that have missed it, you can actually have a replay of the show. You can please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Angela Lee, where all my shows are posted. So if you did not get the opportunity to listen to the show this morning, you can actually listen again on my YouTube channel. Many blessings this morning to you. Many blessings to you. And Denise is saying that's her favorite album. Yes, that's absolutely quite powerful, Denise, quite powerful. Free yourself this morning from mind control. Free yourself this morning from brainwashing tactics and techniques from abusive perpetrators. Free yourself this morning. Take the necessary steps to safeguard yourself, your well-being. It's actually critical. You deserve it. Celebrate yourself this morning. I'm celebrating myself this morning. I've accomplished so much. I'm so proud of myself. So proud of you, Angela. You've achieved so much. And you're going to see me again next week between the hours of 9 and 11, Saturday and Sunday. And Sunday's the Wellbeing Show. So have a good week. Remember, celebrate yourself this week. Celebrate yourself this week. Give yourself a reward this week. Buy yourself something. Celebrate yourself, your achievements, your accomplishments, and be good to yourself. And have a great Sunday morning. Have a great Sunday morning. And I'll see you next week.
I want this feeling to last. Yeah.
Many blessings.
Live it up like it's my last. I cannot give you no sorries. Living for something beyond me. I put my foot on the gas. Yeah. Cause I want this feeling to last. Yeah, yeah. Live it up like it's my last. Yeah, yeah. This was written way before me. I'm just living out his story. You ain't even gotta ask.
I want this feeling to last.
I want this feeling to last. Now you got me feeling alive with the feels and the vibes in my soul. No, don't go away. I need you to come take control. Won't you come take a hold? Cause the world is gonna fade away. I need you in my life. Sometimes I play, but I cannot miss out on my savior. You are my blessing. You are my side, that's some flexing. Oh yeah, we've been through some
Be good to yourself.
some lessons. Sometimes I need that correction. Worth more than million possessions. Yo, it's being in the world that can really change you, play you,